It's the Tiny and Katie Show.
Powered by Roots Hair Design in Marion.
Hey, I'm Tiny.
Hey, it's Katie. Good morning. Good morning.
Well, I don't know when you're going to see this, but I mean, it's good morning for us.
You know
so if
what?
you were saying that, Katie, if you were saying good morning to me, then by all means, we're good.
I just hope that everybody is having a great morning, whether it was, this morning or tomorrow morning, whenever. So I just hope it's a great morning for everybody involved.
Or Tuesday morning, as it were, when you're seeing this.
Right, exactly. Can I ask you a quick question?
Better than anyone I know.
Is it abnormal? You know my personality. I'm very outgoing. I'm very loving,
Pain
and
in the butt.
you could call it that. But when I greet people, I always greet people with a hug. I never do a handshake. It's always with a hug. Is that an abnormal thing, or is that something that I should tone down?
Yes and yes.
Oh,
Well, okay. I shouldn't say you should tone it down unless someone's brought it to your attention that it offends them. But is it abnormal? Yeah. I'm not saying it's wrong
so
and that
when
it's a turnoff, but it's abnormal.
I did have someone recently when I met them and I hugged them, they were like a statue as I was giving said hug. And I
hmm
just thought it's weird for me to think about the fact that people don't like embraces like that because I'm such a hugger. But I wanted to, and I know you're not either. And I think the first time I met you, I gave you a hug and you were like, what the hell is up with this girl? But
Well, I knew I had my hands tied. It was like, oh, God.
here we go. Here we go. Saddle in, kids. I was just wondering if I should tone that down because not everybody seems to be as receptive to hug as I am.
So you're telling me that without exception, when you meet someone for the first time, it's a hug?
Unless it's like a job interview, probably. Yeah. I mean,
Okay, well, that was all right. Fair enough.
if it's a professional setting, I won't do it. But yeah, that is how I greet people is through a hug. And when I meet, when I have parent teacher conferences, I hug my parents. But maybe that's
My mom, hi, Dad.
maybe that's too much, and I should tone that down.
It probably endears you to the parents. I would think it
Well,
may be weird at first, but it gives. Look, the one thing I've said about Katie is you're around her for 2 minutes, and you have a full picture of what you're in for.
yeah.
There's no hiding anything. You know exactly where you stand with Katie.
Well, I have been going to therapy for the last couple months, and I
I
think
would like to hug your therapist.
she's she is amazing. She is amazing. And obviously I go in there with a bucket load of things I need to talk about. So it's never like there's any dead air with her because I'm like, okay, here's all the things that happened to me this week. But
Yeah.
I love therapy. I think that everybody should have a therapist because even if your life is going great and there's nothing really wrong, I think it's still good to just talk things out that are on your mind and get a different perspective on things.
Now,
Um,
what is the difference? And I've heard a lot of people say that, and I have nothing against therapy. I've never taken it or never done it. But what is the difference in is it because it is a neutral party?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
there are a couple things that I've asked her that obviously I've asked my friends as well, but they're too in my circle. I want somebody's perspective on something that is not in my circle that can give me an unbiased opinion on something.
hmm
But I love her. And the last time I had my therapy session, we were talking about boundaries. And she said, it seems to me that maybe you don't set them or have them. And I don't. I have no
No,
boundaries.
you don't.
I'm an open book. I tell everybody everything. But maybe it is a good idea to set some boundaries. So she actually, whoa,
Walter, Walter,
well, yeah, there he is.
damn it, Walter!
He's so
Tearing down the backdrop. You were tearing down the set of the Tiny and Katie show. Cut it out,
yeah.
you big dumb ox.
It took me all of 2 minutes to set up. But she did recommend this book to me called Boundaries that I'm going to start reading. But I don't know. It was just a revelation that I had this week. And I was like, maybe not everybody wants to be greeted with a hug. And maybe I should turn that down or ask first. Hey,
I
is it
would
okay if
say
I give you a hug?
ask.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think even if you say, "Is it okay if I give you a hug?" Probably most people are going to say yes, just because I don't think anyone wants to be that person who's like, no.
No,
I mean, I would.
When I first started working at my old school, I'll never forget. When I first started teaching, my very first job, I went in like a week before the kids came to set up my classroom, and I was terrified. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to set up a classroom. I'm looking at these empty walls, thinking, "What am I supposed to do here? I have no idea." And the other thing that scared me a lot was the technology, because there's so much technology in the classroom now. We're teaching basically on Chromebooks and iPads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out how to work my technology, and I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out how to hook up my computer to the smart board, and, et cetera, et cetera. So they recommended that I go speak to the second grade teacher, who's like the IT guy for the school. And he came in, and he's very introverted, kind of keeps to himself, and he's wonderful. I love him. And he set up my technology, and he got it working. And I was so happy and overwhelmed. Like, finally something's working, that I gave him a really big embrace. And he was like he was frozen
Statue.
solid.
Yep. Oh God.
Frozen
Here we go.
solid. And so when I told people, like, you can see Walter. So when I was telling some of my coworkers about the fact that I had hugged him, they were like, I cannot believe that you hugged him. I don't even think his wife hugs him. And here I am like, but I'm a very,
Poor fella.
very huggy, affectionate person, but maybe I should tone that down a little bit.
Just a touch. How was your week?
I have a diverticulitis flare currently that I'm battling. So that happened, and that never feels good. But have we podcasted since I got a cat?
Yes.
Okay. So when I lost Uno, and I think anybody who has lost a pet can do you see Walter?
I see Walter. Yeah, you got to watch this, because Walter is just becoming the star of the show very quickly.
My roommate has this enormous yellow lab. He's huge. He's 90 pounds, but he is just the sweetest thing in the whole world. Walter is such a good boy. And so I have the cat, and we have Walter. But Walter gets so excited when he sees the cat, and it scares her, and she goes running. So we can't just yet have them together, but we're working on it. What was I talking about before this all happened?
You were talking about your cat and
Oh, Uno. So when Uno died, and anybody who's lost a pet can empathize. It hurts. It really, really hurts. And it, like, a part of you kind of like dies. And
yeah.
I
Well,
never
that part of you dies.
Yeah, and you know how much I loved Uno, and she's been like literally my only constant for 12 years, every day in and out. And when I lost her, it just my heart just broke. But there's something that is so therapeutic about having a pet. And I love Winnie. She's so cuddly, she's so sweet. And she's kind of everything that I feel like she's me in cat form. She talks a lot, she's very chatty.
She's a big hugger.
She is very, very cuddly. And she just makes me really happy. I just
Well, yeah, but here's the question, and that sounds all well and good.
Oh boy.
But does she know all the words to "We Didn't Start the Fire"?
She did not. We haven't gotten there just yet.
Well, send her back. Send her back.
She's coming around to the microphone though. She sees it. She hears me on it. She knows, there's something going on when it comes out.
Like, look, Winnie, you don't know the words to "We Didn't Start the Fire," so I'm just not feline this whole relationship. So,
even though you're perfect, we might just have to
Yeah.
put a pause on it right there.
Yeah. It will have a good tale to tell eventually.
I was trying to
right
get
now.
tail in there.
Yeah.
So she makes me very
In
happy.
case you didn't notice, there's a little clause in our contract that says, I reserve the right to kick you out.
But she makes me really happy. I really like having her. So that was a good part of the week. I had my diverticulitis flare that started yesterday. That never feels good. And I'm dog sitting for a friend of mine, and I love those dogs. They're amazing. I had a date this week, which was great. It went really well. I know. Oh man, so that went well. I know. It's just I like have stopped dating. I said at least 3 times, like, I am done. I am
Walter,
done.
cut it out.
He's just so excited.
I know.
But this one was I like this guy. He was fun. We had a really, really nice time. Time.
How close mile wise is he to where you live?
Like, he lives in the same development where I work, so not far at all, which is nice. Like, it's not an hour commute, as I've had in the past. But I've sworn off dating so many times, but I don't know. It's kind of fun to just, how much I love to get to know people and meet new people.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, at least I'm meeting somebody new, and it's fun.
I could not come off of someone and just say, you know what, with dating lately. It's been like Katie is what do you want to say? Like an alcoholic almost, because an alcoholic will say, "Oh, not an alcoholic." I say, hang on,
Yeah, let's use a
that's
different word.
yeah.
Let's
I
go with
actually
extreme.
I didn't mean that. What it is, you have someone who always says that when they get sick after a big night of drinking, they're like, "Oh, I'm
I'm
never
not drink.
drinking
Yeah,
again,"
yeah.
and
I
they'll
know.
go, a week or two or whatever, and then it's like that never even happened.
Well, I've had, I've met a couple people that I was interested in and it didn't work out and suffered a little bit of heartache and heartbreak. And when I was talking to my therapist about it, she just said you need to go into it more casual. Like it just needs to be more casual. So that's just what I'm doing. I'm just keeping it cash. Just keeping it
And they say,
cash.
Katie, it's impossible, or the quickest way to get over one person is to get under another.
Yeah, but I'm not a slut, so I'm not going to do that.
Wait a minute.
Is that
When
where you
did
were
you
going
gonna
with
tell me
that?
that? Is
How
this
is
news
your
as well?
How is all right, enough about me and my dating life. How are you? Let me guess. I bet I can guess how your week was.
By all
Nothing
means.
nothing uneventful happened. Um, and that's about where we are in life. You have no stories to tell.
Yeah, it was a pretty boring week, actually.
Yeah.
But Mary's coming off of being sick. She had it longer than I had. I was sick from Christmas Eve for about a week and a half, I guess, and she's been, 2 weeks in and just now coming off of it. It hit the
Did she had
baby in between.
yeah. Did she have COVID?
No, we never had that. I tested right away when I was feeling even remotely ill, and it wasn't that. And then when the baby went and got tested, knowing full well she got it from me because we were on vacation, so she wasn't around anybody else.
Mhm.
And they tested her, and she didn't have it. They did,
Yeah.
and they found out she just had basically a cold. But what they're finding is that we've been so long without just having the regular cold that we
You
haven't
don't
had it,
right.
and it's brand new to our systems. Whereas before, it's like, you get a cold every year. It just is what it is, and you move on. And that's why the recovery times are so long now. Is because our body's like, wait, what the hell's this?
Well, and I think that like when people are getting sick now, it's like, is it a cold? Is it the flu? Is it COVID? What strand of COVID is it? And now I'm hearing all these things that people are getting COVID again, and there are all these other residual effects from it, such as like brain fog that's lasting for a really long time. The smell and the taste is like going on for weeks where you can't smell and taste,
Hmm.
and it's having these
Which is
longer.
fine if you're attending a post-holiday party that Katie cooked, mind
I
you.
mean, yeah, accurate. But that's what I've been hearing is all these things are just lasting like way, way longer. I mean,
Yeah.
there's people at my gym that are constantly getting sick and they're out for weeks at a time. It's crazy.
Well, I
Uh,
think what it's done is, if I had to pick one positive from the pandemic, was when we get sick now, it makes us more cognizant about being around people, whether or not it's
that's
COVID.
true. That's
We
true.
still are, where before sad to say, but Katie was the same way. It's like, if I get sick, I'm going to work,
Oh yeah,
and that's just
totally.
all there is to it.
Yeah,
And now, because then, it's about me. It's I don't want to use my sick time, but now it's like, you know what?
I'm
It's
not
not
feeling good.
worth
I'm not.
getting other
Yeah.
people sick.
That's a really good point, Tiny. I know for most of my career, for most of my adult life, I never called out of work ever.
Yeah.
If I was sick, I went to work. I didn't care, but I didn't think of it from the perspective of I'm getting other people sick. I always thought of it from the perspective of this is going to cause a headache for other people if I'm not at
Right.
work today. Especially as a teacher, you have to write sub plans, and it's not fun to write sub plans. But I do now more freely take off work if I'm not feeling well. I don't feel so bad about it. But I remember Tiny
Well, I think
was
too, it's because we know that that's what people also want us to do. So
right.
now, it used to be our mindset was, we will look better to our coworkers and to our managers if we put on the brave fight and come to work even though we're sick. And now it's when we take off when we're sick, we look better but through our managers because we're being responsible human beings.
Maybe.
Who knows?
I do sometimes wake up with, like, a slight cough, and I'm like, "Oh, man, I can't go to work today." Just
Oh,
I don't wanna get
I just
anybody else sick.
a 3-day weekend coming. Woo boy.
Yeah. There may have been a little bit of that happening in my life,
Yeah.
but I remember, Tiny, like, going back on what you just said, how we never used to take off work. Tiny used to get gout really badly,
Yep.
and I don't remember the last time that you've had gout, but Tiny would get gout, and I'll be damned, he would make it into work, and I'll never forget the one day. Now, when we worked the morning show, Tiny would roll in at 5 o'clock. I mean,
Oh yeah.
4:55 maybe, right as we were getting ready to do our first break. He would roll
If
in.
maybe not that early, but
Yeah, maybe 4:57. He would just rolling. And I remember one time I heard the back door open and close, and I didn't hear any foot movement
Right.
for a few minutes, and I was like, what's going on? Did the wind blow the door open? And I go out in the hallway, and there's Tiny literally crawling on the ground, getting
Yeah.
to the studio because his gout was so bad he couldn't even walk.
Yeah.
I think you said you blacked out and couldn't remember how you even got to work. Literally crawling on the ground, like, all
Mhm.
right, I'm here. I made it. And here
And
I am, like,
Katie is
and
giving
I'm
me
pissed
hell.
that he's late. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, you could have crawled 2 minutes earlier than now? Like,
Yeah.
come on, man. We got a show to do.
And well, not only that, but then she's giving me hell, like, why did you even come in? This is ridiculous, blah blah blah. And I said, Katie, if you can, and just like, turn around and go back home. Like, turn around?
No.
If I can just get to the chair, we'll do this. It's fine. So we did, and that was. But what's sad to say is, looking back, how that became the story of my life for a long time. Is
Mhm.
it was like every few months this massive flare up of gout, to the point where what shocks me looking back is that I got a cane. So instead of
Oh, yeah.
taking the
Yeah.
initiative to do something to better myself, and I own this fully. Obviously, it was what it was. Oh, okay. I'm getting this pain that is just sends you to another dimension. You welcome death, but let's get a cane instead of
Mhm.
making sure it doesn't happen again. Let's treat the symptoms and not the what's actually causing it.
So what was I mean, because I know that you in particular got gout from steak and beer. Is that right? Like red meat and beer.
Mainly beer. And back
But
then,
but
you
you
and I would
don't
go out,
you didn't drink. You
but we
never
did
drank.
we did a lot more than I do now then.
I don't know, Tiny. You never drank. Like, very, very rarely did I ever
You know,
see you
here's
imbibe
the
an
thing.
alcohol.
When it's true that I mean, I don't drink now. I don't have any issue with it. If people want to drink, fine. I don't care if it's in my presence. Doesn't matter to me. It's just not something that I do. Primarily because it can, if anything in my life could potentially lead to gout, then I cut it out altogether. But anyway, um, when we were younger and back doing the show on the air, and we would go out, I would drink, I would have beers, and there are certain stories I could tell for me. Now, not they're nothing that is going to stand up to a college frat house or anything, but for me,
Or me.
exactly. But Katie always, every time we ever bring up drinking or anything that we used to do, or anywhere we used to go, parties, whatever, it's like, yeah, Tiny, I don't remember you drinking.
I
So
don't. I don't.
yeah, well, that's because you were getting blackout drunk.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I
But
just
yeah, I was drinking. Like, I told Katie a story, and I'm not proud of this, by the way. So mind you, when I tell this, don't do this. But I told Katie a story about how years ago we went out to this restaurant in Hagerstown, and it was for, I believe it was your birthday party or Jeff's. I can't remember which. Anyway, and I ordered and wound up having 2 pitchers of beer. And Katie does not remember this.
don't remember this.
And to the point where when we left, stupid me, again, not proud of this, don't do this. I was going to drive home to Waynesboro, and a cop got behind me, scared the daylights out of me
And you never did
because
it again.
I should never have
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
driving at all.
Right.
And I wound up, instead of, because everybody was saying, well, Tiny, come back to Katie's house. We're all going
Oh,
back to Katie's house.
I do remember this. You came back to my house. I do
And I
remember this.
did.
Yes,
And
I
he
do.
still followed me to where you lived, and
Mhm.
I turned into your apartment complex area, and he kept going. And at that point, I'm like, oh my God, that's when it really sunk in. I'm never
It's not
doing
worth
this
it.
ever
Yeah.
again.
It's not worth it.
I didn't need to get a ticket. I didn't need to get a DUI, nothing. So I went back there, and I'm telling you and Jeff about this, and Jeff's like, dude, you're staying here. Where
Yeah.
get pound some water, whatever. And I did, and everything was fine. Thank God, nobody got hurt. The roads were bare. Thankfully. But again, when I tell that story, Katie always does not. I don't remember you drinking that much. I don't remember you drinking at all.
Now, here's the thing, is like Tiny is not a drinker and has not been a drinker, but this is my favorite Tiny drinking story ever.
Okay.
Do you remember when you and Dave went on Montgomery Gentry's tour or their
Oh God.
you went on
Yes. Oh.
and you were doing shots of something with the band, and you called me. I was at a sorority reunion, I remember, because I really wanted to go to that concert. And
Mhm.
Tiny calls me, and I mean, Tiny is absolutely hammered.
I'm gone.
Absolutely
Gone.
hammered. And for someone who never really drinks, I mean, he was out of his mind. I think you got sick that night.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
You want me to tell you the story?
I I mean, if it's a good one, sure. I
It
mean,
is. It's a pretty good one. So my friend Dave does alcohol has only ever touched his lips one time. That's a story for another time, and I'll tell that at some point. But anyway, so the record rep calls me and he says, Tiny Montgomery Gentry, they're playing Gettysburg, and it was the big, I think, 150th anniversary celebration, and one of the events was Montgomery Gentry. Pardon me. So their tour was for years, and even up until Troy's tragic passing, was always sponsored by Jim Beam. No matter what, it was always Jim Beam.
that's what it was.
He
That's what it
goes,
was.
there'll be a Jim Beam tent there. He said, come on, we'll get you in, you meet the guys, have some fun, whatever. So Dave was all in, like, oh yeah, I'll go, whatever, I get to meet somebody, it's fine. So when you're in the company of people who are poor, and Katie, when I tell you that you would have loved it. I
Oh,
just absolutely loved it.
absolutely. Yes.
You go to the Jim Beam tent, and there is every variety of Jim Beam you would ever imagine there to be. Some that I'd never even heard of, which was amazing to me. And they will give you as much of it as you want. I don't mean like you want to keep pouring. You could pour it yourself in a lot of cases, right? So Dave's not having any of this, obviously, and which is fine. I knew he'd be my driver. And buddy, I just went full tilt on. At the time, it was when they released the Jim Beam Honey.
Did you like the taste of it? I just can't imagine you drinking liquor at
Well,
all.
I liked the Jim Beam Honey. Turns out it did not necessarily like me. So I'm drinking this like crazy. So then Wix, who's the record rep, he says to me, he said, "Hey, why don't you remember Wix?"
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I do.
He said, "Well, let's go on the bus. The guys are on the bus and they want to say hi." So we go on, and Troy and I'll see if I can find this picture and post it. Troy's on one side, he's to my right, and Eddie is over on the other side. Well, turns out they have coolers built in, and obviously it's Montgomery Gentry. There's coolers built into their couch. So they're talking about all these different beers. By this point, I am gone. There's no vestige of Tiny left at all. And
I missed this. And I missed
oh yeah,
this.
and they're talking about this like pineapple beer, something, and I'm like, pineapple beer? Well, that sounds amazing. Well, try it. So Troy gets up, reaches in the cool, and that's when I see in there, and it is literally like there's a old cartoon where there's this little bitty like 4x4 tent, and you open it up, and it becomes like the Taj Mahal. It's like a warehouse, right? That's what this was. It's like this never-ending cooler, and he just opened it up from the end of the couch. So he's like, yeah, get whatever you want. So I take it. He's trying to get Dave to drink one. Dave's not having it. So I kept on going. I'll have his. And we sat there and drank with, and they're drinking too, buddy.
And you can't not drink with Montgomery Gentry. I mean, what are you going to do?
You kind of have to.
Yes,
yeah.
Of course you do.
Even if you fake it, nurse the same one, whatever, just, whatever. And I hammered probably about 7 or 8 beers there in a span of, maybe an hour and a half, somewhere around there. I mean, it was
just for you. That's just so much for
mind you. Well, yeah, but
and you had all the Jim Beam.
Top of all the Jim Beam.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the old saying is, the liquor before beer or whatever. So I don't know if I did it wrong, but I would say, looking back, I certainly did. So we leave, and Wix is like, "Are you guys staying for the show?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, we'll stay." We go out, find our seats. The moment I stepped out of the backstage area, all hell broke loose. It was just, my head just went. I don't know if there was something backstage that was keeping me like somewhat sober, I guess.
You were probably sitting and just, relaxing, and now you're up, you're standing, the noise is amplified, and it hits you. It hits you.
We go and sit in our seats. The show pretty much had just started. I think Brett Eldridge was just wrapping up or starting or something.
You threw up.
And I looked at Dave and I'm like, I think I might be sick.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay. And he goes, you want to go? I said, yeah, I do. And I got the word "do" out of my mouth. My head bent over, and right there, it all went. I said, we're out of here. So I get up on the way to the car. Now, mind you, at this point, I have no idea. I don't know. I couldn't find my ass with a map in 2 hands. It's not going to happen.
This is about the time when Tiny calls me. I remember that because you had told me you had already gotten sick. And
we find the car. Obviously, Dave is driving. I must have gotten sick 2 times heading back to the car. Now, here's where the story gets the funniest. And I have vague remembrances of this, but Dave can tell this story like nobody else. Dave is not one of those people who has a sense of direction. You set him on a path, he'll drive, but you gotta know where you're going. We wind up in downtown Gettysburg, and there was a major on the strip was this presence of bikers like I'd never seen before. It wasn't bike week, but it was just so many bikers were there. And I'm going to be sick. And I'm in my nitro at the time. And you know how I was about that. And it ain't getting dirty.
Yeah, it's not getting dirty. Yes.
So I'm like, Dave, you got to pull over. I'm going to be sick again. He pulls over. Mind you, he doesn't know where he is. So I open the door and I lean out, and here I threw up on like 2 bikes that were sitting right there.
Oh, Tiny.
Well, I obviously didn't mean to. I wasn't aiming for them. It just was projectile. Here we go. So I don't know if Dave went in somewhere to use the restroom or what. He comes back out and I'm like, yeah, we got to go. He goes, my God, what did you do? And I'm like, what? We wind up getting home somehow. I don't know how we made it home. God love that boy. He left me, God love him, left me in the garage sitting in my car.
Why were you in your car? Oh, because he got in his car and left.
Well, yeah, so we go
right?
in.
Okay.
He pulls in the garage. He gets out. He puts the garage door down. He leaves. So I'm in the somehow. Now this was amazing to me. Somehow I managed to get out of the car, do everything like I normally would, go upstairs, and I can't go to bed without a shower. Wind up being able to get a shower.
Wow.
I remember this, getting into bed, and I don't know how long I slept the next day. Point in case is that if Eddie Montgomery ever does a show around here, I will never drink with him again, ever. It will never happen. And that's pretty much when I swore off drinking.
That was it. Yeah. And imagine how heartbroken I was that as many years as Tiny and I have been friends, that I missed that event. That was the one event I wanted to be a part of.
You know what Katie was most upset about? So we're coming back on Monday now. I called her, like I said, and told her a few things. But now I'm obviously clear-headed, and I'm telling her about this. And I go through that whole story with her, and obviously in far more detail. And she's like, yeah. Get through the whole thing. And she goes, I'm pissed.
Of course,
like,
it's some
why?
selfish reason.
She goes,
because I didn't get to go on the tour bus with Montgomery.
You go to this thing, and you get to go in a Jim Beam tent where they give you all the alcohol you could ever want.
Of course, it's the Katie show.
You get to go hang out with Montgomery Gentry, and you know how much I love their song. I forget what was the.
I Feel a Cold One Coming On is my favorite Montgomery Gentry song.
And she's like, oh, you got to hear him sing that on the bus, and I love Wicks and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Katie, I can't help you. You didn't even tell me about it. I'm like, okay,
this was typical for Tiny and I. Tiny doing something fun and then me getting mad that I wasn't a part of it. Looking back,
if you ask her, I would never do anything fun.
Hindsight, I can be very selfish. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to talk about it with my therapist this week.
It's all about, okay, so how does this affect me exactly? But realistically, isn't that what therapy is about, is how things affect you?
Yes, absolutely. That's why I love therapy. I sit and talk about myself for an hour. Like, that's the greatest moment of my week.
Excuse me, Doc, could you take that lamp and just kind of shine it my way, please? Thank you. Okay. Now that we're here, pause for applause.
Pause for applause.
Okay. Let's go. Yeah, I'm going to tell the pause for applause story real quick.
All right, then we're going to wrap this baby up.
Yeah, we are going to wrap this up. We are at the Lure Center in Shippensburg, and Katie and I are getting ready to introduce, don't remember who it was, doesn't matter. It was a country star. And we'd always have our wrap down, like, okay, I'll go out and say, I'm Tiny, and this is Katie from the Tiny and Katie Show, and WBYZ, blah, 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 sign up for whatever contest. And then I said, hand the microphone over to Katie. At that point, really, I could just take a nap because she's fine. She'll, rock and roll.
You say that, but I remember anytime we went to the Lure Center to do any kind of announcements like that, I was nervous. I would get very nervous. I would never go without you.
Like, it has a bit like it's an intimidating setup because it's very professional. It's very but anyway, so this night, Katie says, Tiny, when you hand me the microphone, I'm gonna lead with a joke. I have like a little quip of a whatever. Okay, fine. So as Katie would, I'm just waiting, ready to go because I want to get home. And Katie's like, I'm gonna say this. Like, I'm Tiny from the Tiny and Katie Show. Give me that microphone. And then she said, so I'm gonna say,
pause for applause.
So I look at her, and it was like this. Like, did you just say pause for applause? I said, Katie, I don't even know the joke or whatever you're going to say, but I can't imagine There would be an applause.
Everybody's gonna be like like a standing ovation, like yes, Katie. And I'm like,
The
yes.
Oscar goes to. Yes.
Pause for applause. One of my favorite memories.
Now, mind you, these are people, and this is the thing about the Lure Center too, and this is part of what I think would make Katie nervous as well. Is these are people who, a lot of them, they're donors to the college, so
Mhm.
there's a lot of they don't stand. It's not like
Oh
this
yeah, you
ruckus
sit.
party
Yep.
crowd.
Mhm.
So if a country concert was a church service, it would kind of be like that. It's very, no pictures, no this, no that.
Mhm.
It's still a great time. I love them up there at the Lure Center. I plan to go back several times this year. But the point is that Katie was like, oh, so I have to be a little bit more reserved.
Refined.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. So pinkies up, everybody.
Yes.
But it was that pause for
I
applause. We still use that all the
yeah.
time.
Yeah, pause for applause. Well, let's pause for applause as everybody gives us applause for our fabulous episode
Woo!
number. I'm pretty sure this is episode number 40. I'm pretty
We
sure this is
and
40.
we should have waited because January 28th of this year, someone I know turns 40.
Oh, I don't really care about that. If it's not me, I don't care.
Well, it's me.
I know it's you. I know it's you,
Then why
dumbass.
wouldn't you care? Why wouldn't you care about that?
Because I'm
Even,
selfish.
look, I can't wait until I don't know if we're going to do dinner or whatever for her 40th birthday. I can't wait to tell everybody stories of how Katie will take this and turn it to her. I guarantee you.
It's not going to be about me, but I will bring the microphone and we'll sing you a little birthday karaoke. But
Boom,
have
bada
a
boom.
good-
Hey, we are out of here. Tiny and Katie Show, powered by Roots Hair Design, Route 11 in Marion. Like Katie said, episode 40. Can't believe we got this far, and we got so much more coming your way. You can't even imagine. This year is going to be full of change, and
Yeah,
I mean,
yep.
we just can't wait.
Absolutely.
Good
Have a
stuff.
great week. We'll talk to you next week.